Did he pick the wrong Hulk movie to review? Give me a second. I know everyone's thinking that, but the point of my videos is reviewing movies that I had issues with. So it's not always going to be horrible movies like Alien Resurrection. This doesn't mean that The Incredible Hulk is on the same level as the Ang Lee film. God, no. Hulk 2008 is passable. However, it disappointed me in key places. But what they've done to Hulk over the past 14 years, Marvel's made this movie look better. I've been a Hulk comic fan since I was 7. You always have those favorites that you really like. Hulk and She-Hulk comics are mine. So I really care how well Hulk characters are adapted in any medium. Check out my reviews on the 3 animated series. I'm critical of all of them. In the early days of Marvel movies, Marvel didn't really have any kind of consistent universe. It was a hit or miss. The first go with the Ang Lee movie completely failed on multiple fronts. So 7 years later, they tried again. Quick rundown. Incredible Hulk is about the scientist Bruce Banner who got transformed into a monster, forced to go on the run to protect innocent people from himself and to get away from General Ross gaining this power. The movie is much more faithful to the comics, but it's not perfect. The major thing they decided to change was Hulk's origin. I always push for adaptations to be as close as possible to the comics. We live in a day and age that makes all comics and heroes doable. In the past, we had compromised because they couldn't afford the effects or the effects were not possible. The second reason, when you change things, even if it's tiny, it can affect the future material. I'm not opposed to changes if it services the story overall and leads back to what the comic was intending. One change the movie did, they copied what they did in the 1982 Hulk cartoon where they made Betty Ross into a scientist, so that she would always be around Bruce and Hulk, while in the early comics, Betty wasn't one. It helps the character be a part of the core story without forcing her to be placed into situations where you see her on an engaged military base or a plane for no reason. And it didn't break who Betty is. Now, I've read people's defenses on why they like the movie's experiment on Bruce that turned him into Hulk versus the actual origin of him being exposed by the gamma bomb. I will admit the original situation is dumb. How does Rick Jones survive the explosion by just being in a ditch? It's basically the whole lead-lined fridge Indy survived the nuke explosion with. It's equally stupid. But you can fix the original origin to accommodate realism. Instead of flat out changing it, I would tweak it. Rick Jones stumbles onto the field, the test is activated, Bruce goes after him. Since we are dealing with a gamma bomb, I can give it different rules. One of its main factors why they're testing it is that it affects electronics. When Bruce gets to Rick, his Jeep stops working, Rick's bike doesn't work, eventually his music stops. So they have no choice but to run. There are emergency underground bunkers set X amount of distances in the test field. This field is a specialized area that's reusable. Similar to like in New York City's train stations, there's wall gaps every so many feet where workers can duck into if they're caught off guard from an approaching train. But the area hasn't been used in a few decades, since it used to be a nuclear bomb test site. So fences and junk have gotten neglected. Rick runs for the bunker, Bruce is behind him, but he trips, hurts his leg, fails to reach it in time, Rick gets in, bomb goes off, Hulk is born. That's how I would make it work. You can bend things, but if the core of that story is intact, you're good. But the main reason why I was upset was because this change caused problems with the movie's pacing, a loss of a character, and general stupidity. With the origin being an experiment that Ross knew about, Ross knows Banner is Hulk right out of the bat, which makes him go on the run immediately. So you lose that time with Betty, and it also removes a key character, Rick Jones. I talked about this in my other Hulk reviews. Rick Jones is needed because Hulk and Bruce need someone to bounce off of. Rick is basically Bruce's control rod. He tries to keep the both of them in check. He's also there when he has to stop Hulk's rampage. With him gone, you have that gap. Rick also allows Hulk to appear more often, which this movie had problems with. Having the first reveal in the shadows, I was fine with, but Hulk needed to be on screen longer. Not just in fights, but showing that internal war between Bruce and Hulk, using Rick to rein them in. Think about the whole stuff with Black Widow and Hulk in the later movies. It's a thing that comes out of nowhere, because that's supposed to be Rick's job. And in this movie, Rick was turned into a heart monitor. Plus, you wouldn't have needed to bring in Leader this early. The middle part of the movie was slowed down by having to juggle all these separate things. If the origin was left intact, we could get more screen time with Betty. Rick would be introduced. We're using all three characters at the same time. We can focus on Science Bruce, but also be under Ross's nose. The movie could have flowed better, then they could focus on building up Blonsky turning into Abomination. Not to mention, this is going to be a long rant, the She-Hulk trailer pissed me off so much it made me do this review because it's repeating the same mistakes this movie did. Having this different origin story made Bruce and Betty stupid. Ross was the one trying to reopen experiments on the Super Soldier program. You bring in your daughter and Bruce and you don't tell them about your real motives? One, why? Second, you wouldn't be able to hide this. They'd see the chemical makeup, they do tests. Then you can see the writers trying to sneak in the whole Bruce was doing this for radiation testing. They would have done tests before anyone would have had volunteered to be in that chair, let alone one of the head scientists. That's why making it a hard to reproduce accident makes more sense. And this freaking repeats again in the She-Hulk show, where they alter her origin story where it doesn't make sense anymore. Originally, Bruce was forced to give his blood because she was shot and dying. He had no choice. In the show, it's, let's just do it, ignoring that Bruce was tormented by being Hulk for years, so he shouldn't be willing to do this. Then the trailer contradicting itself, Jen at first was like, I don't want to be a hero. Then she volunteers for this crap? Unless the trailer is covering up a plot line that they don't want us to know about yet, I'm giving them way too much credit here, where the pilot takes place a bit back before Bruce becomes the badly executed Professor Hulk, meaning regular Hulk, and they do 2 or 3 episodes based around Savage She-Hulk, so they could build Jen up, then go into Sensational She-Hulk, earning this page from the comic. I like Professor Hulk. I don't have a problem with that alter ego. I just want things to make sense here. But I don't see that happening when we see Hulk going, yeah, like a moron. They're pulling the same goddamn garbage. Now I don't got hope for it anymore. I'm cursed being a Hulk fan. The 90s Hulk cartoon second season went to crap. Hulk Agents of Jokes went to crap. Hulk never gets movies. They skip over his character development. You had 2 comic writers screw up She-Hulk in the past 3 years. So the next time you think the Gamma Bomb is stupid, just remember, this movie hired scientists that don't do tests or understand what they're working on. And don't get me started on the gamma poisoning cameo with Stan Lee that should have turned him into a gamma monster. But for some reason it don't. All to be for the dumbest way they find Hulk. If Rick was there, they could have done a montage of Hulk moments that could have made some websites or news, which could have led Ross on a trail. Edward Norton as Bruce Banner. Acting wise, he did a good job. He has to show fear, put a little bit of comedy here and there, although I hate the whole not wearing purple pants joke. Be the tormented soul, have that little bit of weakness. He got to be the emotional side of the character. What lacked was the scientific side of Bruce. We rarely got to see him trying to find a cure, which was a key part of him. The movie even had some additional scenes that they cut out showcasing it more. Originally, I didn't really care for Norton for these reasons. When Ruffalo first came on the Avengers, they started doing what was missing, so I was happy. But Ruffalo's version of Hulk got progressively worse. They did the opposite. They focused so much more on the science Banner. It's like Marvel, when they hear complaints about something, they go to the extreme in the other direction. Oh, you didn't like the drama Bruce? Let's just do nerdy Bruce. I like all 3 sides of Bruce. Well, really, 6. Then Hulk just started to become memes and jokes, thanks to him being thrown on the wayside. Things aren't properly explained, where they tell us, oh, this will be explained later on. No, how about give him 2 more movies, so you wouldn't have to explain his character stuff in She-Hulk or other different series and movies. Okay, I've been bagging on the movie a lot. What did I really like about the film? William Hurt by far is my favorite actor portraying General Ross. He embodied this character. The writers got him down. His fear of the Hulk, his anger when his daughter gets involved with the monster, doing anything at any cost in getting Hulk's power. He loves his daughter, but when push comes to shove, he will use her. Every time Ross appears on screen, you hate his guts. What makes him more terrifying? His plans are nearly flawless. He has plans for plans because he knows what Hulk is capable of. I love at the end when Hulk stops Abomination, Ross in the background is so pissed off. One, he helped prove that Hulk is a good guy, like Betty said, but also the people around him could start seeing him as a hero. He's so angry his plan backfired, on top of which he has to thank Hulk for saving his life and his daughter's. All that in one look. Also, rewatching the movie got me thinking, the reason why the 2008 movie feels off, it's the same problem Amazing Spider-Man 2 had, where this movie feels more like a sequel to the origin story. Ross already knows Hulk's abilities. Ross told Bruce before the film what his goal is, and Betty gets in a relationship with Leonard Samson. Time has passed in the movie. If they had done a movie before this story and had, say, Rick was arrested at the end of Hulk 1 to remove him for the time being, that would have made more sense. I would have been okay with that. Bringing in Abomination in a sequel makes sense too. The movie just feels like we skip stuff all over the place. Now, Liv Tyler as Betty Ross, I know her acting style from Lord of the Rings. She plays Betty a little different than the comic version, but it's not like a negative way. She excels at the core element of what makes Betty Ross. She goes beyond seeing Hulk as a monster. Betty doesn't jump to conclusions. It's from her experience dealing with her father. She knows that Bruce is still in there and wants to help him get out of this insanity. I really wanted more films with Tyler playing the character. It would have also brought in Samson. She has that relationship with him now. There'd be problems all over the place. We could have had developed both the characters more in sequels, get introduced to Doc Samson. I'm just picturing a Hulk sequel movie that had Bruce, Hulk, Mr. Fix-It fighting for control. Imagine this happening during the time between Infinity War and Endgame. It would have given Ross that opening. Half the people are dead. He preys on people's emotional states of what just happened. They could have gone in a lot of directions there. And if we had Doc Samson in the MCU, they could have had him introduce Professor Hulk properly. Who's left in the cast? Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination. Of course, with Hulk's origin being changed, Abomination's origin was also affected. But for the character himself, I thought he was fine in the film. He could have used more screen time to give him a bit of extra backstory. He's just kind of your basic prick, smart dude that's on par with Ross. The final fight between Hulk and Abomination is the best thing of the movie. They didn't disappoint in that area. Minus the weak CGI, there's a lot of shots that look video gamey. I was interested with the character when they didn't kill him off because it was kind of surprising. Spider-Man constantly killed off their villains, not giving them any chance to come back until No Way Home reversed that, as far as we know. I was like, cool, they'll get to reuse him with Leader later on. Well, unfortunately, that never happened. He ends up being used in that Shang-Chi fight with Wong helping out, or some crap. That's what he's been doing for the past decade. Even Hulk's villains can't catch a break with being wasted. And that brings up Samuel Stearns, good old Leader. I know Abomination is Hulk's main. I just prefer Leader over him, although in recent times he's gone all over the place. I didn't hate him in the movie. I just wish he wasn't in it right now. He basically stole the time that could have been used for Rick. Stearns' origin wasn't even connected to Hulk like they did in the movie. He got gamma irradiated in a completely different way. He should have been saved for a future movie, using Abomination and forming a team to go against Hulk at some point. He's also another character that basically went nowhere when the Hulk movie stopped. This is why the movie is 50-50 with me. While I'm grateful that the movie was much more closer to the comics in the first one, the changes I think were unnecessary and hurt it. We needed more time with Betty. We needed Rick and build Ross up to that deranged psychopath. I loved a lot of elements of the movie. I like the little references here and there, like Lou Ferrigno's cameo, the David B on the envelope. Bruce has always had first name problems in the comics and the 80 live action show. I'd still recommend the film. I was disappointed that it performed poorly back in 2008, combining that with Universal and Marvel not wanting to work together or whatever's going on. Hulk might as well be controlled by the puppet master at this point. He pops in whenever they need him to do something. Rarely does he ever get moments, and if he does, it's usually a meme. I don't really see hope with the character anymore. They're never going to give him movies at this point. She-Hulk is going in the same direction. She's missing core elements of the comic that are needed. The bad CGI don't freaking help either. Marvel, give your damn effects team time. 20 years ago, Golem had better facial animation than hers. Will I ever review the Ang Lee Hulk movie? I don't know. I still haven't reviewed Hulk Agents of Smash for the same reason. And these characters cannot catch a break.